All right, the road to WrestleMania 41 is going to be an exciting one. If you guys missed my previous video talking about Paul Heyman and the betrayal, you guys might want to watch that. But I do need to talk about Jacob Fatu becoming the new tribal chief, because I do 100% believe that WWE will, in fact, make that decision. And it's actually really interesting because right now, Solo Sikoa, especially in the last few weeks, I feel like he's really come into his own as the tribal chief for the new Bloodline. But as you guys saw at Survivor Series, the 5-on-5 War Games match, Solo Sikoa got destroyed by all 5 members of the original Bloodline. Well, obviously CM Punk wasn't part of the original Bloodline, but I think you understand my drift. Now, why would Jacob Fatu actually be the new tribal chief? Well, one, I think the new Bloodline has actually been quite unsuccessful under Solo Sikoa. Tonga Loa, Tama Tonga, they lost their tag team title belts. And obviously, Solo Sikoa now winning at Survivor Series should be considered a big deal. Also, Solo Sikoa never captured the WWE Championship under Cody Rhodes. So WWE has a very big reason as to why they should have Solo Sikoa get kicked out of the group. But now they even have a bigger reason as to why he should be replaced by Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu is energetic, charismatic, a fantastic in-ring worker. The Samoan Werewolf has a lot of potential as a character long-term in the WWE, and I think eventually Jacob Fatu is going to be one holding plenty of gold in the company. Now, in order for WWE to do this successfully, he has to make a major statement, and the only statement that he could truly make that is a big deal is him doing the swerve and kicking out Solo Sikoa. Now, you might be wondering, Ango, how did you come to this conclusion? Except for, just those decisions that I just mentioned, we cannot forget that Solo has a huge obsession with Jacob Fatu, praising him all the time. Jacob Fatu, I love you, Solo. It has literally become a meme in the IWC at this point. Jacob Fatu is one of those guys who is making very, very, very big efforts to look good, but at the same time, the new Bloodline isn't looking good under the leadership of Solo Sikoa. So it just ultimately makes more sense for Jacob Fatu to be the one that does this, and therefore you have Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and they are going to need somebody else in the group, and I think that's where Hikuleo enters the picture. Now keep in mind, Hikuleo is somebody who signed to the WWE several months ago, and internally in the company, he has been listed as a member of the NXT roster, but all of these months have passed and we have never seen Hikuleo on NXT. And I think the reason for that is because WWE has just been waiting for the right time for Hikuleo to join the new Bloodline. And if the Bloodline come out and Hikuleo is the one to actually beat up on Solo Sikoa with the help of Jacob Fatu under his leadership, now you have a very, very big moment, not only for his debut, but also for a transition in the story. And I think once we see the group entirely transition to this new variant, that is when The Rock gets revealed. Now, you might be wondering, when would all of this happen? I can't imagine WWE wanting to do any of this until after Raw hits Netflix. I think WWE is going to have a very big week that week. There's going to be a lot of momentum that week. WWE is, promising this new era. And obviously, that's when things will start to heat up. So if Jacob Fatu is one of those guys who ends up doing this and he does it on that week, I just think this will be a massive moment for the WWE. Now, of course, WWE has to do a lot of things here in order to make sure they're successful, because I'm going to be honest, this could reach NWO territory if they get a little too crazy here. And I really hope that WWE is smart enough not to do that, especially when they've signed Lance Anoa'i, they brought in Hikuleo. I mean, I think it's just really important that people understand that WWE has been signing a ton of people. WWE has been building up this program for years. I mean, at one point, at what point does it all end? And I don't think WWE has plans to end it. And that's why they would want Solo Sikoa to be removed as the leader. But at the same time, too, WWE has to be careful because you don't want to make Solo Sikoa look weak. And that is something that could very well happen here if they don't have a better backup plan. And you have to wonder if that means Solo Sikoa would reunite with Jimmy, Jay, and Roman. And quite frankly, I don't think that's going to happen. Now, this is where things get actually really interesting to me, because The new Bloodline storyline that we're starting to see like now on television, I think people need to understand a couple things. I think the first thing that they need to understand is that right now where the storyline stands, we don't even know if the new Bloodline, the old Bloodline, the OG Bloodline, we don't even know if they're going to be sticking around together as a group. Jey Uso was a main event. Jey Uso, does he go back to being a singles guy? What do you do with Jimmy? Do you put them as a tag team again? Do you keep them all aligned? We don't know. There are still so many questions here. And I think that is the one thing about the storyline. There is literally a million different ways for them to go. And I think only a few of them will be the right choice. And I think there, out of all million scenarios possible, I think a very, very large possibility, I think a large percentage of them have a high possibility of being failures. And so I think WWE has to plan this intricately, because if you have Jacob Fatu become the new tribal chief, you kick out Solo Sikoa, then he gets rejected by the OG Bloodline. Like, there's so much stuff that you can do damage wise. You can really impact Jey Uso's singles reign, singles run. You could really hurt Solo Sikoa by making Jacob Fatu look better. You could really just hurt Roman Reigns in general. Obviously, Roman Reigns will survive it, but you could really impact Roman Reigns and what happens with him if he doesn't start getting some big wins, because we're starting to see Roman. Obviously, he just had a big win at War Games. He had a big win at Bad Blood, but if he doesn't have some very, if we don't see him having some very big moments after this, then obviously something has gone wrong. So WWE has to protect a lot of characters here, and I think that's going to be a big challenge. And that's why I said it could get to the NWO territory, because with however long they keep this going, with however new members they add to the group, with however many leadership changes they make, it could get to a point where people at that point are just tired of it all. And I think that's why this is why WWE has to be so incredibly careful. Now, the final point that I want to make about Jacob Fatu, I believe he is a future world champion. And I think if The Rock and Cody isn't the plan at WrestleMania 41, I would actually really, really love if Cody were to drop his belt to Jacob Fatu. I would be super incredibly happy about that, because I'm just a big fan of his work. I was a fan of him before he came to the WWE. I seen his work before the WWE. I was very familiar with him, and it would be really cool to see that. I don't think that will happen. I think WWE knows that it won't happen. And so the only other plan that they could have is potentially having Jacob Fatu go for the US Championship. But again, you got to protect a whole bunch of people in the process. You also want to be very careful, because the Bloodline stuff has been going on too long. People will want a conclusion at some point to it all. And I don't know when that may be. And obviously that's where it gets really tricky. But it wouldn't be a bad idea for this new Bloodline to get separated from Cody and everybody on SmackDown and being moved to Raw on Netflix next time there's a draft. But we'll see how WWE goes about it. But I think there's going to be a lot of split ups, a lot of swerves. And I think Jacob Fatu will be the new tribal chief.